Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Pitt post-game show here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We're your hosts, Chris Carter and Noah Hiles. Pitt has lost another game, 28-13 in football to Syracuse at Yankee Stadium. Noah Hiles is there on site at Yankee Stadium. You'll get our good, bad, and ugly, as always. But as always, this show is also brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. Go there to try one of their 500 different available beers, 300 of those beers being available on tap. 300 of those beers are from the Pittsburgh area, and 80 of those beers are available on tap. They also have over 20 televisions. You catch up any sport that you want. Go to Mike's Beer Bar today. Now, Noah, this was another embarrassing loss. Pitt falls to 2-8. This is now the most losses of the Pat Narduzzi era, most losses since the 1998 season. And it's such a sharp turn for this program as a whole. We'll get to that kind of stuff later. But let's get to our good, bad, and our ugly. Do you have anything good to pull out of what was an utter beatdown at Yankee Stadium?
I mean, I had a good time at Yankee Stadium. This place is really cool as a baseball fan. No, but if I had to pick one good thing about Pitt right now, I would still say it's the receivers. If you look at their one touchdown drive, Chris, 3 plays, 80 yards. The receivers are responsible for all of that. Bub Means had 2 catches there. One of those a 65-yarder. Another big play for him, and Konate Mumfield obviously with the 10-yard touchdown. But just looking at how these receivers have played since the bye week, I think every one of them have shown signs of progress and reasons to be optimistic. And when you consider the fact that Bub Means can be back next year, and everyone else on the roster has at least 1 or 2 more years of eligibility, there's something to be, I think, encouraged with. And when you're looking at offensive staff turnover and things of that nature, I think it should be noted that Coach Underwood has done a really good job at developing these guys. The problem is getting them the football, which, I'm sure we'll get into somewhere else in this show. But I do think it needs to be mentioned that these receivers, they're making big plays. 110 yards after the catch today.
Yeah.
That's really good for any opponent, but they're just not scoring. And again, we'll get into that. Chris, what is your good?
My good is that there are 2 games left this season for Pitt to have to play. Yes. And that's not to make fun of Pitt. That's straight up. I think that this team is digging a further hole with every single game where they struggle and they make more mistakes. They are compounding. This was like, at least against Florida State, you saw fight, you saw effort, you saw a plan that if a few things go their way here and there, they could have pulled off an even bigger upset than their win over Louisville. In this game, I saw a little bit of that early on, and then it just faded away so quickly. And it's and I see things building just when I watch the tape, when I look at things here that continue to show that this team is starting to become punch drunk with some of its mistakes. And the shorter this season is, the less time they have to dwell in that and get on to the next season and get ready. Because I still think, I know that a lot of people, people are going to say a lot of crazy things and want Pat Narduzzi fired and all those other things. You don't fire a coach after he just had 20 wins in 2 seasons. Now, a season like this does open up those questions for the near future, but you give him at least the benefit of the doubt to rebuild and to refocus. But this team needs to find a way to get out of this season without any more damages to this program that make it look even worse. We'll get into my bad in a little bit here, but I thought the biggest part of this loss, is like this was a Pitt identity loss that very much looked like Virginia Tech all over again, where they just couldn't stop the run. And that's my bad in this situation. They couldn't stop the run. This was a Syracuse team that you came in knowing wouldn't be throwing the football. Pat Narduzzi even said it to you guys in the post-game presser. They had 17 passing yards, and you gave up 382 rushing yards. I looked this up. They haven't done that. Pitt hasn't allowed that many rushing yards since 2017. This was supposed to be the era of Pitt that stuff wouldn't happen anymore. They had its identity. I get the early part of Pat Narduzzi's tenure. That makes sense. He's trying to establish things. This is a Pitt football team that should not be doing that. That's what's depressing. And most of it, or the most yards that were gained by it, were by a tight end who had 2 carries for 3 yards this season. They simply went to the Wildcat, and Pitt had no answers. That is basic gap integrity football that Pitt cannot do. That is unthinkable after seeing what we've seen, the kind of football Pitt has played in recent years. That's my bad, because That is a terrible sign for the direction of this program if it does not fix those things.
To add on to your bad, that tight end Carter was also their leading passer.
It's crazy.
3 of 5 for 12 yards. They're a tight end led them in rushing and passing.
It's embarrassing.
Heck of a game on his end, though.
Absolutely.
And a kid that Pitt offered as a quarterback out of high school.
Ooh.
Yes. All right. So you said you're bad. I'll go with mine. It's the offense. The defense was really bad today. But the thing is, there are times throughout the season, and there are many times where you can go back and you can look at the defense and say, they played well enough to win. I mean, you could go all the way back to last week, and I think you can make that argument where they went toe-to-toe for 4 quarters with one of the best offenses in the country. Now, that offense wasn't entirely healthy, but nonetheless, they held Florida State to 24 points. I think the Seminoles entered that game averaging over 41 points a game. So the defense had a bad night, and it was an atrocious night, but there's still something to build off of. Where the offense, it's just not scoring points, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, you look 45 points against Wofford, that's Wofford. And I think their second highest scoring total would be what? The Louisville game. 7 of that 38 came from defense. So it's just not taking advantage of things. Although I will say they did get 3 points off of the turnover the defense forced today. But it is essentially coming down to this for Pitt offense this year. If they do not get a huge, I'm talking 50-plus yard play, they're not going to score a touchdown. They need that big Bub Means catch or Konate Mumfield or someone to just break one, and it either results in a touchdown or it sets them up for an easy score like 1st and goal, or it's not going to happen. And let me tell you, those big plays, sure, sometimes they're well designed, but more often than not in college football, any play of 40-plus yards is more on the defense than anyone else. It means there was a coverage error. It means there was a miscommunication. It means there was a missed tackle. That's how those things happen. And sure, you got to give credit for the offense to drawing it up and executing, but big plays are typically an error on defense more than anything else. So, and basically what I'm trying to say is this whole year, unless their opponent has screwed up royally, Pitt's offense has not been able to score points. And that is just unacceptable. So, yeah, that's my bad. I'm going to keep it rolling here and just get into my ugly real quick. Because I'm just thinking about it. And we're recording this Saturday night. In 5 days, this senior class will be honored on senior night against Boston College Thursday evening. And it is really sad to see how they're going out. A lot of these guys, I mean, you just look at the names, David Green, Jake Cradle, Blake Zubovic. These guys were around Matt Gonzalez to
MJ
win.
Devonshire.
MJ Devonshire. They were around for some of the biggest moments in Pitt football history in the last 20, 30 years. Some could even argue ever. Really, with the first ACC championship, they were part of the Sun Bowl victory last year. They stuck with the program throughout the pandemic. And I wrote about it in my 5 takeaways, which will run Sunday morning. This senior class was a part of a group that symbolized what many thought symbolized at least, a turning point. That the floor was a 6-6 type season. That was the worst it would ever get. That the days of the late 1990s were an afterthought for this program. And apparently that's not correct. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not partially the senior class's fault. Some of these guys got injured. Some of them have not performed well. They're a part of this team, and they're a part of the reason why Pitt is 2-8 right now. But it is incredibly unfortunate that this group, which once represented the end of the dark days and the beginning of a new, more competitive era of Pitt football, it's very sad to see that this is how they're going to go out Thursday and what's probably going to be another loss to Boston College. Carter, what's your ugly?
It's that, but plus the identity part of this, because again, back to the whole run defense thing. if everything else went wrong, if the quarterback played poorly, if the running game wasn't there on offense, if the pass defense was giving up big plays, the Pitt would not allow a team to bully itself off the line and not let you just run all over them. That was never a part of Pitt's problems under Pat Narduzzi since he kind of gained a foothold and started making this program his own a few years into his tenure. Now this has happened multiple times this year, and it's begging the question as far as like what's happening here that's allowing it to fall into that state. I mean, like, again, it's there's always complimentary football questions. There's always issues as far as, oh, you know, if the offense does a little bit more, maybe the defense doesn't get tired. Maybe they do this, maybe they do that. But this was a Syracuse team that you should have been able to stop, to be able to understand, okay, and Pat Narduzzi said it during the ACC broadcast that they were using new things with the tight end who had never run for them before. And they were saying like, hey, like, they're doing new things. We're adjusting to them. And I was getting ready to say, going into the early part of the third quarter, the way that they gave up a touchdown on the first drive, but then shut them down for most of the rest of the first half, I was getting ready to say, you know what? Pitt has made some really good adjustments. And then all of those adjustments just fell by the wayside in the second half. They stopped reading their keys. There were times where the option run would go one way, no one would go with the quarterback, the tight end would go the option, and no one would stick with him. And these are basic tenets of football that just weren't being executed. That's never been part of a Pat Narduzzi team since Pitt's become good. And that brings major questions. It's not just that they're losing this year. It's not just that it's a 2-8 season right now, coming off of 20 wins in the last 2 years and that historic run that you're talking about there that these players should feel proud of being part of. It's also that these are the things that built that. And if this cannot be recaptured, it is a terrible sign of the direction of the program. It's going to take some serious gut check to next year for a lot of these players to either rekindle that or form a new identity. If it's going to be based in, you know what, maybe they get a quarterback because Christian Veilleux wasn't good in this game. Either he or someone else comes in, is a good quarterback, and these receivers are just dynamic and they make plays. Maybe they get new cornerbacks next year because, part of that senior class you're talking about is not just MJ Devonshire, but Marquez Williams and AJ Woods. And they've been the starters for years now. Yeah. So Ryland Gandy and a whole new crew of guys are going to have to start there. That's a big question mark for this team. So my biggest part of this ugly is that it's not just that they lost. It's not just they lost to Syracuse in this way. It's that this is now signaling a theme that we've seen throughout this season, and I'm not sure it's going to change unless something else changes. And I'm not saying that's Pat Narduzzi, but I'm saying something fundamental that Pat Narduzzi has to do. He has to put his foot down this offseason, and Pitt has to do something to make sure that their defensive front gets back to kicking butt up front. And Charlie Partridge, great defensive line coach. He needs more guys up front that can be game wreckers. I don't know. But what I think, too, is that the bottom line of this is they have guys that can be the answers for these questions. They're just not being them. And that, again, goes back to the approach and the identity of this team.
Oof. It's bad, Carter.
It's bad.
But like you said, only a couple of games left. I'll let you wrap it up here. Send us home.
Absolutely. I know that this was a rough one for Pitt fans, but Pitt basketball has been playing pretty well. I covered that game, and they had a really good performance on Friday. They play again Monday here in Pittsburgh. We'll both be here for that. So stay tuned for all our coverage of that moving forward. He's Noah Hiles. I'm Chris Carter. We're your Pitt beat reporters for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Find all our written work at post-gazette.com. Find this show and all of our Post-Gazette podcasts on the Post-Gazette Sports Network, either on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily content that comes out from the Post-Gazette. And as always, subscribe to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We're Chris and Noah. We'll see you again Monday when we're talking about Pitt basketball. Keep up with the coverage right there. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.